All right. Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to the very first episode of our Building a Beloved Community virtual talk story series. My name is Zelda Keller, and I'm the Executive Director of the Institute for Climate and Peace. The Institute for Climate and Peace is a climate justice organization that uses the data-driven approach of positive peace building to build equity and climate resiliency in communities most drastically affected by climate change. This webinar today is our effort to build connection and collaboratively build a beloved community, even as we are physically distant. When we first began talking about hosting this webinar, I had modestly estimated maybe an audience of 15 individuals. And I am so thrilled to have been incorrect in my projection. We have had hundreds of RSVPs for today's talk, and many more inquiries came through after we sold out. So thank you for being with us today. A couple of notes. This live webinar series is a product of the friendship and the partnership between three Hawaii-based groups: the Institute for Climate and Peace, the Matsunaga Institute for Peace, and CEEDS of Peace. Our partner, the Matsunaga Institute for Peace, is an academic department at the University of Hawaii at Manoa that promotes cross-cultural understanding, collaborative problem solving, critical thinking, and lifelong skills to groom leaders to address contemporary and complex issues near and far. I'd now love to turn it over to our third partner, CEEDS of Peace, represented by the fantastic Executive Director, Scott Nishimoto, and he'll share a little bit about his organization with you and also introduce you to our guest speakers for this afternoon. Thank you again for being with us today.
All right, thank you so much, Zelda. It's really cool to be on such a gigantic Zoom call right now. This is amazing. This is officially the biggest Zoom call I've ever been on. So as Zelda said, welcome to our talk story series. CEEDS of Peace is so grateful to be a partner in this as we try our best to raise peace-building leaders in our community and beyond. You might have noticed that we're CEEDS of Peace, so CEEDS with a C, C-E-E-D-S. And we start with the C because across our various community workshops and events, we teach and model what we call our C leadership skills. Skills like compassion, critical thinking, commitment, collaboration, conflict resolution, courage. And at the heart of what we do is connection. And how lucky are we today to learn from two of the most well-respected and effective connectors and peace builders we have in our community. So first, I'd like to introduce Puanani Burgess, also known as Auntie Pua to most of us. Auntie Pua is a process designer and facilitator for building the beloved community, a community building and conflict transformation process based on bringing people face to face for ceremony, storytelling, and healing circles of trust and respect. To me personally, Auntie Pua is the name that repeatedly comes up when communities are in need of healing. Scott, we need to talk to Auntie Pua about this. I hear that sentence all the time. Our second guest is Maya Soetoro. Maya serves as the consultant to the Obama Foundation, working closely with their international team to develop programming in the Asia-Pacific region. Prior to her work at the Obama Foundation, she served as an educator at nearly every level of education. She's also an author of children's books, including Ladder to the Moon, which, side note off script, that is my daughter's favorite book. Maya is also the ultimate connector, and it should come as no surprise that she's the connection between ICP and CEEDS of Peace, two organizations which she co-founded, as well as the Matsunaga Institute, where she served as director. Maya will be facilitating this conversation with Auntie Pua. So without further ado, let's welcome Maya Soetoro and Auntie Pua Burgess.
Mahalo. Thank you so much, Zelda and Scott, for your kind, generous, and articulate introductions. I am really grateful to have all of you here and would like to take just a moment, if you would, with our eyes closed, to engage in a little bit of guided mindfulness. So if you would close your eyes and try to ignore the siren that's in the background. I'd like to take this moment to offer thoughts for the victims and survivors of COVID-19, for the families who have lost and suffered, for first responders at every level, physicians, nurses, custodians, restaurant workers, All of us here today hope for strength and healing for all involved, for thoughtful, compassionate leadership, for responsive policy. Let us together renew our commitment to nourish moral leadership and courage, to reduce fear and violence, to build more resilient futures together. Let us celebrate this hour of simple pleasures in collaboration and connection, and find comfort in the presence of so many beautiful souls and clever minds in our beloved community. Mahalo. I'd like to, over the course of this conversation, as we are here to learn from the manao, the wisdom and the experiences of Sister Pua, also ask those of you in attendance to reply to these little questions with one word or slightly more in the chat section, just to make it a little bit interactive and to keep you reflecting. So the first question I'd like to ask is a simple one. If you would just put in the chat room where you are dialing in from. I'm here in Manoa in Honolulu, Hawaii, and Auntie Pua is from Waianae and sitting there. But if you would each just take a moment and share with us the many places you stand or sit. Mahalo. Many of you are coming from Hawaii, but I see that we also have friends from the continent and from other parts of the world, and I welcome you all here today. And welcome, Auntie Pua. It's so good to see you and to have this shared hour with you. We at ICP and CEEDS of Peace and the Matsunaga Institute focus on positive peace. As distinct from negative peace. You know, Galton talked about negative peace, the absence of acute conflict or war, versus positive peace, which is the presence of relationships, infrastructure, education, art, policy, and much more that enable us to collaboratively problem solve and engage in community cooperation. The focus with positive peace is on what we want to see, what we can build together, and it offers a strength-based approach. I'd love for you to think about the concept of beloved community in terms of its integration with positive peace, and to share with us your concept. What does the beloved community mean to you, and how does positive peace play a role in this concept? I'd like to take a moment before you answer and just have everyone in attendance write down very quickly your definition or vision of beloved community. And then we'll hear from Auntie Pua.
Their language, greetings among all of us, birds of many feathers. I use that honorific greeting to you today to remind us that we are all one kind, and yet we are all of many different feathers. So as we sit here in humanity, we are always trying to figure out how we live in relationship to. I think the first time I heard building the beloved community, that conglomeration of words, is when I went to Highlander Research and Education Institute in Tennessee. It was at Highlander that many people, including Rosa Parks and Martin Luther King and many other civil rights leaders, went to talk story, to be able to talk to their colleagues who were white, who were also fighting for civil rights and fundamental freedoms. It was a safe place to have deeply troubling conversations. And when I first heard that word beloved community, it's very different from just building community. A community that is beloved to you is one that you want to be a part of, one that you also feel like you've been invited into, and one that you also invite others into. So how we live as part of a beloved community, the core of it is positive peace. Positive peace isn't the absence of disagreement. A lot of my work really is in the space, a sacred space of non-agreement. I think we have to remember that in positive peace, that spot of non-agreement is the place where we haven't made up our mind yet. Oftentimes, we go into a conversation or a debate or a talk in which people have already made up their minds. Or if they haven't made up their minds, they don't know how to get from the space where they are in to the space where they want to be part of. So that space of non-agreement is a place that requires you to do more research, more reflection, more talking to people before you can actually make up your mind whether you agree or you disagree. But too often, because we think that person doesn't agree with us, they disagree with us. And that's not the case. When you are in non-agreement, there is still time for conversation, for reflection, for allowing other ways of looking at things to be brought to the circle. And I think, positive peace, for me, is not the space in which I do conflict resolution. I don't do that. I do transformation work. So my principles, if I can help you see the other person differently, then maybe you can see the conflicts that you perceive are happening differently. And unless you can come to that conversation, even if you don't agree, but in a space of non-agreement and yet wonder. Wondering and curiosity is the core, I think, of empathy. Only when you can wonder about, I wonder who Maya really is. I wonder what she really represents, and give her the space and the ability to show you who that is, rather than you making up your mind about who she is from what you read, what you heard, what somebody else told you. But how you find out from her, and to remain curious about other people. And the curiosity is not just about the other. The curiosity is about yourself. You have to remain curious about who you are, what you learn, what you know, and what you're willing to learn. And so, the notion of positive peace is not complicated, but it is layered. And it does require people to do work that is not comfortable. But all work worth doing is going to be discomfortable at some point. There's nothing that I have done in my life that when I first started, I knew what I was doing. Like being on this thing, this virtual platform. It took me so long to convince myself that I could do this. And then it took other people who said, Antipur, you can do it. Just put your mind and just focus. And then they walked me through it so that I can be here to talk to you, even if I cannot be in your living room and you cannot be in my place. I can still be with you. And we can still learn from each other. and we can still be curious about the world. That's what positive peace is about. It's about being curious about the world and being willing to hear something you never heard before, and then try something you never tried before. That's what being creative is about. And positive peace is a very creative process.
Thank you.
What else I can say about that?
No, that was really powerful and beautiful. I agree with you that curiosity, that sense of wondering, that is a very important place to start. And then the process of leaning into your discomfort, of finding ways to push forward, that is how we define courage, I think. It's about pressing forward, even though you are uncomfortable, even though outcomes are uncertain, even though you're not yet sure whether you should trust in the person or the process, either beside you or before you. And I find listening to you that I become braver myself. And I think that that's really what we want to do at a time where folks are suffering and feeling small and frightened, worried about an uncertain future, about illness and personal finances, as well as health, that we have to find ways to open up a sense of courage and possibility. I talk a lot about washing the eyes and the need to build empathy through, re-seeing ourselves at a particular moment, revisiting what is important and of value to us through crisis. You know, this washing of the eyes is very important. You, Auntie Pua, talk a lot in your beloved community process about Na'au, a different part of the body, that place where mind, heart, intuition, experience all come together. It is a place that is about instinctively honoring your intuition. It is a place that values protocol and storytelling. You speak about guts on the table, which is wonderful. This notion of asking layered questions that compel participating community to mind their own interiors, and whether they're sharing their name stories, the story of their people, their family, their community, their water, wind, fire, earth, they share in ways that require that courage and curiosity, not just about others, but also about the self. Can you say more about this concept of Na'au and in terms of how it plays into your process? And obviously critically important for a lot of Kanaka endeavors and community, but you know, for those who are unfamiliar, might be from elsewhere, how do you share this concept in ways that they understand and that will allow them for themselves to explore?
Well, let's wait till the hot rodders are down the street. There we are. So I want you to put your finger on your belly button. Okay, that belly button is the marker. And in the processes I do in building beloved community, I'm always trying to get people to go below the belly button. So the Na'au, and you know, we use that term in lots of ways. You know, my guts tell me this. I have a gut feeling. We do think from there. But I think Hawaiian culture and practice gives you permission to think from there. And that, you know, what your mind can discern is so much richer when it's put into relationship with your heart and your intuition and your experience. And the thing that you can think of when it goes below your belly button, and it's not just here that you make up your mind and you make decisions. Usually you find that the decisions you make by bringing all of those parts of you into play, you make a better decision. So giving people practice, and not just practice, but actually helping them remember when they did do that, when they did think with their head and their heart and their intuition and their experience, when they put all of that together, what happened? And so a lot of the processes I do give you permission to explore your own history. Because you cannot make peace for somebody else if you cannot make it for yourself. I'm going to tell you this small story which represents, I think, the core of what building beloved community does as part of loving yourself. So one of my teachers was my Zen master. His name is Tanoi Roshi. And before he passed away, Tanoi gave the priest a final talk. And so into our dojo, he rolled a log and a stone. And then he asked us, so what does the artist do? And he waited, and one of the priests raised his hand, and he said, the artist carved something beautiful. And then Tanoi just waited, and he said, no, all the artist does is take away rubbish, because the beauty is already in that stone, and it's in that wood. And all the artist does is take the rubbish away so that beauty can come out. And he says, priests, we don't heal people. We take away rubbish so that they can be engaged in the process of healing themselves. They have got to see their value and their beauty and why they are so wealthy and why we need them. Our job is not to heal them. Our job is to remove rubbish. And that is part of positive peace, is the removal of rubbish so that people can reach compromise. And people have to remember, compromise is not you giving up everything. Compromise is you make promise and I make promise. Together we make promises to each other, and then we give our pono stamp to it and say, I'm going to follow through and you're going to follow through. It's not, if anybody just wants to win, you cannot make peace out of that. Go hire attorneys, go court. But if you want peace, positive peace, you have to be willing to compromise. And that is an exchange of promise. So that's what comes when you think below your belly button and not just up here and not just here.
Absolutely. Well, and part of what you're speaking to, I feel, is instructive in terms of helping us to move from places of traumatic stress to growth. And this notion of having a growth mindset and thinking about removing the rubbish, clearing the way, understanding the path also requires that we appreciate and understand our gifts. What comes to mind is the story that you have told about working in the Women's Correctional Facility with Warden Patterson, who helped to transform with you the WCC into a pu'uhonua, or place of refuge. Yeah. And one of the things that you said was that too often we begin and end with trauma, and that while it's understandable and important that we explore the sources and roots of trauma in order to acknowledge the suffering and to acknowledge that that has led to certain outcomes, you always began with the building of the beloved community and creating a space of trust, respect, and understanding by acknowledging gifts. You said that only through searching for the gifts can these participants, these women, arrive at a place where they can say with conviction, I am valuable, I have something to live for, I have something to contribute, and I have something to give the beloved community. So I would like to ask you, but first would like to turn into the participants who are here and ask them to put in the chat section one gift. What is one gift that you have, dear participants, that inspires you to say, I have something valuable to contribute to this beloved community? And then, Auntie Pua, I would like to ask you, how do we search for our own gifts? How do we identify them? And then how do we practically incorporate this practice into our lives? At home or work, can we do that in a way that allows us to remain humble and thoughtful about our collective value?
You know the word alternative? This is a strange way to get there. So, you know, there are certain words that occupy public space, and peace is one of them. The word when I was growing up was alternatives. We're trying to offer our world, our children, alternatives. Alternatives to the kind of work that our parents did. That all of us didn't have to work in the pineapple or the plantation fields. We could do other things. So we had alternatives, and that's what our parents worked on so that we would have different choices than they had. The notion of an alternative is just about as strange as the notion of I have a gift. You don't get in touch with it unless you ask the question. So you know that boy that I asked who was in the 11th grade at Waianae High School? When I did the process with those 12 young people in Waianae High School, they had to tell the story of their names, their community, and their gifts. And you know, when I first posed that to them, I thought, oh, la, 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 you know, this is easy to answer. It's not easy to answer. And I didn't even ask myself that question before I asked others. So when we got to that circle, there was a young man. He told the story of his name and his community, but when it came time to tell the story of his gift, he just pushed back. And he told me, what kind of gift you think I get? I stay in this freaking special ed class. I get hard time read, and I cannot do that math stuff. And so by every measure that the society measured value, he already understood he had no value. And so he asked me, what do you make me shame for? That's what I can't give. If I had gift, you think I'd be in this freaking special ed class, separated from the rest of the school? You think I'd be here if I had gift? So he just shut me up. And I felt shame because I made him shame. So I shut up. And then I started to collect all my stuff, put them in my bag, and I took off. But you know, every community, there's always places where you can see everybody in the community. The guys you like see and the guys you don't like see. So for us, it's Tamura Store. So I'm in Tamura Store, and there's that boy, and his back is faced toward me, and all I can think of, Maya, is run. So I'm backing up, and I'm trying not to hit nothing. And that boy turns around, and he looks at me, and then he throws his arms open like this. And then he says, Auntie. So he went from Miss to Auntie. So I knew something changed for him. Something happened. So he said, Auntie, I've been thinking about that question. I've been thinking, I go and give a better find him, you know. So I've been thinking, Auntie. So I looked up at him and I said, brother, what is your gift? He said, you know, I get a hard time to do that kind of work in this school. But Auntie, you know, when I go in the ocean, I can call a fish, you know. And a fish, he comes every time. every time I can put food on my family table. Every time. And sometimes when I stay in the ocean at the shark, he come, and he look at me, straight in my eye. And I tell him, Uncle, I'm not going to take plenty fish. I'm going to take 1, 2, just for my family. Humble. All the rest, I leave for you. So the shark, he tell me, how you cool, brother? And I tell the uncle, you cool. And so the shark, he go his way. I go my way, Auntie. I think that's my gift. How many of these kids are we not seeing? How many of them are out there who have these gifts that if we only could teach to them and surface them for themselves and for the society, what could happen? What could happen? So it doesn't happen unless you ask the question and you got to chance them. And that boy, he chanced them. That question never get to him then, but you give people a seed and it sits in them, and when they're ready, the seed grows. So those questions, what's your gift? It's a small question, but it can take a person a long way. So, what's your gift?
Oh, mahalo, that's beautiful. I feel that there's such infinite possibility there in what you just said, in this notion that a single boy's gifts belong to us all, and we need to reinvest in a vision wherein those gifts attach, connect, and braid with ours, and we restore that sense of interconnectedness and mutual responsibility, such that any gift that we possess as individuals becomes everybody's gift potentially. I think in thinking about that, and the way that people are pieces of this beloved community, and part of it is finding the gifts, articulating them, bringing them to the surface, sharing them. So too are each of our communities part of the larger environment. I was thinking about how our natural world is facing unprecedented threats from climate change, and of course our communities are imperiled. But if we think about these communities as really being connected together, and part of that piece that each community has a gift to bring to the earth, to restore that sense of real malama aina and aloha aina. But we have food insecurity, we have intensifying weather, and thousands migrating in search of a safer future, and losing and saying goodbye to their beloved communities. So I guess I want to think about our beloved communities' connection with the sort of larger mission of being guardians of and stewards of island Earth. So can you talk to us a little bit about the concept of building beloved community in terms of its role in part of a holistic approach to preparing for and responding to the impacts of climate change?
I want to tell you a story about Uncle Walter and Uncle Eddie. Uncle Walter, Kili'oke Kai Paulo, and Uncle Eddie Ka'anana, both traditional fishermen who came from the community of Miloli'i on Hawaii Island. I want to tell you this story, which is about climate change, but it's about all kinds of changes that are happening that we are not paying attention to. So I had a chance to be in part of a circle that would be a circle in which Superintendent Kishimoto was going to be in. And I had the opportunity to tell a story, but I wasn't certain what to tell. And, you know, sometimes you get an opportunity, like this is an opportunity to speak with you, speak to you, speak to so many people who have come from wherever they are to be a part of this conversation. So I live comfortably with uncertainty. And so in the morning when I got up, I was staying in Waimea with my dear friend Cheryl Ka'uhani Lupenui, and Uncle Walter and Uncle Eddie were sitting next to my bed. And you know, Uncle Eddie and Uncle Walter died long time ago, and periodically they come back to visit. And Uncle Walter and Uncle Eddie told me very clearly, Auntie Pua, you have to tell her the story of how we fish. And then you gotta ask, is this important? So, you know, you get the direction and you make a choice of whether or not you're going to do it or not. And the problem is, you know, the thinking mind says to you, Pua, you're going to sit with the superintendent of education and you're going to tell her you talk to dead people. What's that going to look like? You're going to look like, ooh, heebie-jeebie kind of stuff. So I wasn't certain that I was going to do that. But then when I finally ended up in the circle and I looked around and I saw human beings. And I saw human beings just like me who don't have the benefit of having kupuna, who can talk to you and who can bring different ways of perceiving into the room. So I said, okay, I'm going to try. So I told her, Uncle Walter and Uncle Eddie asked me to tell you this story about how they fish. So in Nilo Li'i, the fishermen, and the fish that they traditionally fish is called the opelu. It's a scad mackerel. They don't think about opelu as product. They're going to catch fish to go sell. There's that. But basically, they think of opelu as kin. This is my relative. And so because they see the opelu as relative, what they think about is, first I take care of them, and then they take care of me. So a long time before they actually fish the fish to put on the table for the humans, they go out and they feed the fish. When times are good, they feed them taro and pumpkin and uala. When times hard, they feed them dry bread, get. And so they go out day after day and then they'll feed the opelu. And when the opelu is ready, they'll tell the uncles now. And they go out on the canoe, they lay their round hoop net, put the palu bag in the middle, pull the string, and all the palu will come out. Then you watch all the opelu go inside and eat. Then they pull the bag up, and then Uncle Walter and Uncle Eddie would look for the old ones, the fish they caught before. So they find those fish, and they put them back in the water. And then the work of that fish is to bring the babies back to that family's ko'a, the place where their family traditionally has kuleana to take care of. So in that way, always going to be full, the ko'a always going to have fish. But it's because the humans think, these are my kin. I am responsible to take care of them. And when they're ready, they take care of us. So when we think about climate and the environment, what would happen if we saw them, one as kin and two as citizens? What if we saw them as citizens? How do we give them voice so that we take care of not just taking care of climate change to make it safe for humans? How do we have weather and water patterns so that it's safe for them and they can prosper, not just us. Unless they prosper, we will not. And that's what happens in a family. And I think that change of thinking really needs to happen, that understanding that the natural world is not ours to possess. It's not ours to use as though we owned it. If we are kin to them, how do we behave that way? And how do we take care of this Aina so that they're safe and not just the two-leggeds? So, Uncle Walter and Uncle Eddie.
Thank you, Uncle Walter, Uncle Eddie, and Auntie Pua. I'm reminded of, efforts. Over at Ho'olu'aina, there's the sign right at the base. It says the earth is our grandmother, and just small ways that we can help wash the eyes of young people and help them to see that in a different way. I'm reminded also of the Wanganui River in Aotearoa, where the New Zealand Parliament granted this river the rights, same legal rights as a person, the rights of personhood. And there are ways that we can begin through policy, through education, to shift this way of thinking. So much of this learning and wisdom has come from kupuna, from acknowledging the ways of seeing and being in the past and in tradition that remain so valuable for our future, as we think about our future and where our canoe is heading. I guess one of the things that I feel is so important about the beloved community process is that it does involve intergenerational duet. And this combining of past, present, and future, but also people of every age, and even those who don't have direct and immediate access to kupuna, like you mentioned, can find bridges in the beloved community space where that wisdom gets passed on. I really love the story that you've shared in writing and in person about going and speaking in front of an audience that was smaller than you'd hoped. And your son, Mauna, who was 8 years old at the time, convinced you to see things differently. He said, "Hey, how do you know that Gandhi wasn't in the audience, Ma? You got to assume that he was there." This notion that every person who was there could be the one to build that bridge. But also, you write about that moment is a moment of clarity where you experience the truth that wisdom is not just the province of the elders. And your teachers, your kumu, can come in any form, be of any age, from anywhere. We at ICP, Seeds of Peace, and the Matsunaga Institute really weave this notion of having young people woven into our values, but also our processes. Because young people are in a position to lead today, and they mustn't feel as though they need to reach a certain age before they are in a position to lead. I want to ask you to speak a little bit about this notion of intergenerational duet, but also what role do young people have in building the beloved community? Why are they important? And what responsibility do we have to uplift them?
Oh my goodness. Young people are scary. They're scared because you cannot control them. You cannot control how they see the world. I mean, they see things that I don't understand. And I think that puts us in a really good position of looking up to them. Teach me how to do this. So, but how you connect to them and how you help them take away their own rubbish so that they don't feel like they are bound to the history and the situation of their families. The way your family lived and what they had to do in order to survive is not necessarily yours to carry. So how do you help them really begin to take away the rubbish and be able to see a different future for themselves, no matter what it is that home looks like, without disparaging home, helping them figure out, I have a different pathway and I have a gift. So unless the system really starts to create a process in which it can see the giftedness of our children and not just measure them on their capacity for reading and doing math and science and solving problems in the way that we like to have them solved. Unless we begin to stretch the way our institutions run to enable them to be who they are, I'm not certain that we're going to be able to reach them. And I'm in the process of saying yes to facilitating building a beloved community with a group of teenagers. In my heart and my gut, I want to say yes. In my mind, I'm thinking, this is really hard work. I don't know if I can. The other part is, if I don't try, who are going to blame? So if for some reason it's being developed that a group of people have a group of young people that they have kuleana for, and they want to have them experience building beloved community as a way of developing toolkits for them to be able to examine the world, not just the world that they're in, but the world that they want to be a part of. If I say no, what's that about? And so, my intuition, my gut tells me to say yes and then figure it out. And when I don't know and I'm confused, to own it. And to say to them, I don't know what I'm doing, but I want you to teach me. I want you to teach me how to talk to you, how to respect you. I want you to teach me that. And that's why I feel like I'm not going to teach them anything, but we are going to be in a learning situation. You get to teach me something. And I'm going to carry that back to the people that I belong to and my age group. And then I'm going to teach you what I see. And then you'll carry that as your seed to the people that you belong to and your age group. But we cannot afford to lose each other. We just cannot. And so whatever it takes, Yamaya, we have to, if the opportunity is given, even if it's scary and we don't know what the hell we're doing, we got to do it anyway. We have to do it anyway. And that's why I have a mind about, I'm going to try my best to do that work with the young people. And I'm going to ask them very sincerely to teach me how to do this work better. And then to take it and then them do it.
I actually think it's going to go beautifully. And the reason is that your love, your aloha for them is so palpable. And because you are so good at listening and helping others to listen. And, the love of an auntie is everything. They will, even if they're kolohe, you just the proverbial, ear twisting.
Pull your ear.
And say, I expect a great deal from you. You have great gifts and you have so much to contribute to this community. That's something that you will.
I think that's why one of your ears is longer than the other.
You're going to do beautifully. It's 4:54, which is my time to wrap up this portion of the discussion. I hope that there will be many other conversations around the concept of building beloved community. This is just the first, but we are so grateful for the wisdom and guidance that you have shared. We have learned that we need to lean into our discomfort. We need to be curious and to have courage about the things that are uncertain. We need to mine our own interiors, engage in robust reflection, and pull out and share our gifts. We need to work in concert with the environment and all the creatures in it, but also think about the transgenerational and multi-layered ways that we begin to understand the truth of our future. For those of you who are listening, after what you have heard from Auntie Pua today, can you please share in the chat section one thing that you can commit to doing to build your beloved community? What is clear is that it is not enough to reflect. It is not enough to understand. Those are good parts, but we all must begin to act. And we use whatever resources we have at our disposal, human and otherwise, and we begin to see peace building as action-oriented, pragmatic, and part of our responsibility to one another. We have to move forward in ways that enable us to contribute to the betterment of others, and we have to commit to finding a way to stay optimistic about our future. So I'd like to close, if you would, dear sister, with a poem of your choice to help us say aloha for now.
Okay. I'm going to read the poem Kako. Kako is a big idea. It includes and embraces more than you and me, her and him, she and us guys, we the two-legged. It includes so many more than us. It includes the many-legged beings that crawl on their bellies, the furry, scaly, scary, and odd. So when we think of who are the citizens of Hawaii name, how do we include all of us? How do we hear and see and include what they need and what they know? Let us give thanks to the people, our ancestors, who understood and embraced the fundamental idea of Kako. Mahalo. Thank you so much, Maya. And to the group with you.
Thank you, and thank you to everyone who participated in today's conversation. I have seen some of your contributions in the chat section, and what is evident is that you are brilliant and thoughtful, compassionate, and exceedingly interesting. I, for one, am feeling really good about having you all in my beloved community, and I'd like to hand it back to Zelda and Scott to wrap up. Mahalo, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Maya, and thank you, Auntie Pua, so much for sharing your wisdom and insight today, and to everybody who joined for doing the same. I feel like often my days can move too fast or too slow and be weighted. But each and every time I speak to the two of you, I feel better, I feel lighter, I feel calmer and more at peace. And I really want to thank you for sharing that gift with us today. For everybody joining us, I also want to let you know, this is the first of a series of webinars, so we'll have some more announcements about upcoming webinars, upcoming speakers, and even some interactive workshops that are in the hopper, and we hope that you can join us for those as well. Thank you, and Scott, I'll turn it over to you for closing remarks.
Yeah, thank you all for joining. You know, I feel like building a beloved community has to start somewhere. And I think today we started by building a beloved Zoom community. And as soon as we sign off, we are building the rest of this community. I just wanted to end by maybe we can give like a virtual clap, virtual round of applause to Zelda Keller. She is I guess the new executive director of the Institute for Climate and Peace. And she was really the person who kind of pulled this all together. CEEDS of Peace and Matsunaga Institute. Jose, thank you so much for kind of
Yeah.
manning the Zoom room. But Zelda kind of pulled us all together, so I think she deserves a ton of credit for this. I think it was a little bit harder work than we thought it was going to be, right? There's a lot to think about. It's the first one, but next one will go even smoother. Actually, this one went really smooth. So thank you all. Can we give another virtual round of applause for Auntie Pua and Maya, please? And
Mahalo to you
yeah.
and Zelda
Mahalo,
and
Auntie Pua.
Jose. Okay, aloha.